All right, we have more great work from our law enforcement that, of course, all of the rioters from Antifa and Black Lives Matter want us to abolish and defund. But we have U.S. Marshals found dozens of missing children in Georgia, which is, of course, my home state. So I'm glad to see this stuff happening back home in Georgia. So, the U.S. Marshals Service Missing Child Unit, in conjunction with the agency's Southeast Regional Fugitive Task Force, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and Georgia state and local agencies, led a 2-week operation in August in Macon in Atlanta and Macon. Sorry, Augusta is a town in Georgia too, so I thought it was Augusta, Atlanta, and Macon. In August in Atlanta and Macon to rescue endangered missing children. Operation Not Forgotten resulted in the rescue of 26 children, the safe location of 13 children, and the arrest of 9 criminal associates. Additionally, investigators cleared 26 arrest warrants and filed an additional 26 charges for alleged crimes related to sex trafficking, parental kidnapping, registered sex offender violations, drug and weapons possessions, and custodial interference. The 26 warrants included 19 arrest warrants for a total of 9 individuals arrested, some of whom had multiple warrants. And, you guys saw the video that I put out recently, where I was on the ground at the Save the Children's March. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It was massive. It was awesome. But we're called conspiracy theorists for believing that there is a massive issue with pedophilia, child sex trafficking, all of that. But we keep seeing reports like this coming out all the time. This has become almost a weekly thing. We see some new report about some big bust in this field, and it's good to see that they're finally being taken down. But I would like to see people on the left actually accept that this is a real issue. And instead of sitting there spouting about Trump being a Russian asset and he's trying to steal the election through sabotaging the post office and all that nonsense. That is fake conspiracies. That is fake conspiracy theories. This is real stuff that's happening with child victims. And so the fact that the fact that they won't even get on board with a movement about saving the children simply because it is something that is seen as a Trumpian agenda is absolutely disgusting. So we have pictures here of the officers and the raids. These are the heroes here. So the U.S. Marshal Service is fully committed to assisting federal, state, and local agencies with locating and recovering endangered missing children, in addition to their primary fugitive apprehension mission, said the Director of Marshal Service, Donald Washington. The message to children and their families is that we will never stop looking for you. And that is a good message to send, and I hope, if anybody finds himself in trouble, just know you're being looked for. There's some very bad and dangerous people out there, but it's good to know that we have the Marshals, which it makes sense to have the Marshals on the case, because what the Marshals do is they hunt down fugitives. They are there for tracking down people. So it's good to see that Marshals are being put on missing person cases as opposed to just tracking down the fugitives. I mean, of course you want to make the arrests, but more than anything, you want to make sure that the children are saved from whatever situation that they're being put in. So these missing children are considered to be some of the most at-risk and challenging recovery cases in the area, based on indications of high-risk factors such as victimization of child sex trafficking, child exploitation, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and medical or mental health conditions. Other children are located at the request of law enforcement to ensure their well-being. USMCS, that's U.S. Marshal Service, investigators were able to confirm each child's location in person and assure their safety and welfare. And let's see what this video is. Let's go ahead and check out this video and see them in action here. So this is Operation Not Forgotten, Atlanta 2020.
Are going to be tucked away or hidden or in another room. We can look to the remoteness of the location or the configuration of the living situation. And it may be a scenario where an actual threat never needed to be made. It was just the presence of the weapon.
See, most of them are not wearing masks either.
Rescue some kids who really need to be rescued. You're going to give some kids who made some bad choices because they've been dealt bad, bad hand of cards.
Is this kind of cool seeing a behind the scenes in the Marshals as they're gearing to.
Though I don't see the point of contact.
So it looks like they're on the scene of one of the locations, and of course they're blurring out any of the victims. So you don't want to put anybody out in the public, especially when you're dealing with minors like this. But I just wanted to show this. I actually hadn't looked at it before now. So, but I do think it's kind of cool. All right, well, I guess they're going to show us them serving a warrant. This is, or maybe not. Anyways, we can move on from the video. I just thought it was cool that they show the behind the scenes and what goes into organizing some of these missions. And you can see that it was a pretty large task force there. It looked like probably 20 people in the room, all involved in this. So. Excuse me. The Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act of 2015 enhanced the U.S. Marshals' authority to assist federal, state, and local law enforcement with the recovery of missing, endangered, or abducted children, regardless of whether a fugitive or sex offender was involved. And that's why I was saying that's why it's really good to have the Marshals involved in this, is because their job is typically to hunt people down, to track people, to find people, and what better people to have when you're looking for missing children. So the Marshals established a missing child unit to oversee and manage the implementation of its enhanced authority under the Act. In 2019, the USMCS helped recover 295 missing children based on requests for assistance from law enforcement and has contributed to the recovery of a missing child in 75% of the cases received. Now, 75%, it's hard to say whether that's a very high success rate or not because, I know... I don't know enough about the field to know how high that is. It seems like a pretty good number. Of course, we would love to see that number at 100%. But I would take 3 out of 4 missing children being found than 0 out of 4 missing children being found. So, they're out there doing the job, and that's they're the heroes here. Additionally, the missing children recovered, 66% were recovered within 7 days of the USMCS assisting with the case. It's a high uptick. Since its partnership with NCMEC began in 2005, the agency has recovered more than 1,800 missing children. Now, I know that's... We'd love to see that number higher, especially when we know how many children go missing every year. You can Google the number, and it's somewhere like 800,000 children go missing a year in the U.S. And a lot of those are going to be cases where it ends up being kind of a false call. The kid ran off, or he went to go play with his friends and he forgot to tell his parents, and the parents were overzealous and they called to report a missing child and that kind of thing. I don't know how many of those actually pass the 24-hour threshold. So there are certain nuances to that data point that I don't actually have the information on. But 18, you'd love to see that number higher than 1,800, to be honest. If it's since 2005, you really would like to see that number be higher. But I know the Marshals are out there doing the best they can and doing everything possible, but it's so hard when, these people go missing. When we track down fugitives, it's good. It's a good feeling to know that we're putting the bad guy behind bars. But that sense of accomplishment is nothing compared to finding a missing child, said Darby Kirby, chief of the missing child unit. I can only imagine, if you're a U.S. Marshal and you're hunting down a child who is in a very dangerous situation, they're being abused, they're a victim and they're absolutely helpless. That feeling when not only are you taking down the person that is victimizing them, but when I can only imagine. I mean, I'm sure there's always a sense of fear, but also a sort of I'm sure that there's been many times where they just see the glow on a child's face who was just moments before felt utterly helpless, felt like they had nothing left, they maybe even thought they were going to die, and then all of a sudden, they hear the door get kicked open, and then they see their abuser being thrown on the ground and put in cuffs and all, and they just that feeling that everything's going to be all right, and to be a law enforcement officer and actually see a child go through that, I can only imagine how absolutely overwhelming that could possibly be, knowing that you contributed to saving that child's life. It's hard to put into words that feeling you get when rescuing it. Oh, it's hard to put into words what we feel when we rescue a missing child, but I can tell you that the operation has impacted every single one of us out here. I can only imagine. We are working to protect them and to get them the help they need. This initiative was the culmination of several months of planning and coordination between USMCS, NCMEC, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Georgia Office of the Attorney General, Georgia Department of Family and Child Services, Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Child Healthcare of Atlanta. Oh, and Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So good on them. This is a good story. You know, I've been posting a lot of videos where I get a little bit angry about a lot of things that are going on. I wanted to post a feel-good story, something that shows that there are good people out there doing the Lord's work and doing things that are really benefiting society. And you know, so let's. For the U.S. Marshals, and I've always thought that U.S. Marshals was kind of a really cool department of law enforcement because they are mostly in charge of tracking down fugitives, and there's something kind of old school about the Marshals, and I'm sure that part of that shade. My favorite show of all time was Justified with Timothy Oliphant, Walton Goggins, and Nick Searcy. Who, if you don't follow Nick Searcy on Twitter, you should. He is a very outspoken conservative in Hollywood, which is a very great thing to hear. He's up there on James Woods' level. But yeah, Justified focused around the U.S. Marshals, and that's my favorite show of all times. Of course, it was Elmore Leonard, who, you know, one of the best writers ever. But anyways, I'm off on a tangent here. Anyways, I just thought this was a good story. You guys should know what's going on. And yeah, so please go ahead and like this video, share it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. And if you are interested in contributing to the channel, which would be greatly, greatly appreciated, I could certainly use the resources to help grow this channel. Please consider checking out the links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.